Roger Radcliffe. Roger was a son. I'm Zina. I'm from Moldova. I have a twin sister, a younger brother, and a younger set of twin sisters. We were born to drug-addicted, alcoholic, physically abusive parents. So around the age of 6, my parents came home one day just surprisingly to us, and they walked in and they got upset by the broken window that they saw that my twin and I broke in order to get outside, because we were stuck inside all the time. We were locked in and we had a bucket to go to the restroom in, and so they were really upset that we broke that window. And my biological dad just automatically just charged towards my twin sister and grabbed her by the hair, yanked her and just put her in a corner, and then went to get a box of matches, came back, did the same thing to me, and he had me sit really close to her and watch him trying to burn her hair. And so each match that he would light, I would breathe really hard and blow it out before it reached her hair. And it happened for a few minutes while we were there, and he got really upset that the matches weren't working and that they weren't burning her hair. He grabbed us both by the hair and just yanked us and just dragged us outside. We were little kids and we couldn't walk as fast as he could, but anyways, he just dragged us all the way to the backyard that had a chopping block on it, and he let go of me, grabbed my twin, and put her neck on that chopping block. And I'm still on the ground trying to process everything that just happened and how I just got dragged from the house to the backyard. And then I see him grab the axe and trying to go for her neck. I got up really fast. I pushed her out of the way, and I just charged my biological dad and knocked him to the ground. He had really long hair. He had a ponytail on. Grabbed him by the ponytail and just yanked him, and I hit his head on one of the cherry trees in our backyard, and took my twin sister by the hand and just got her up, and we just ran that night. We just ran, and we got to our safe spot in the graveyard that I had created a long time before, and so it just was still there. And we went there that night. We slept there that night. The next morning when we woke up, I just decided, hey, this is not what we want. This is not what I want, at least for me and for my siblings. And we went back to the house, took my younger siblings. I took one twin and put one on each hip, and she took my little brother in her arms, and we just took off. We went down the road and we just started walking towards what we thought was my grandmother's house, just trying to find it. And we didn't know anything. We didn't know how to get places. We just decided that if we were gonna take this road, we're gonna get there eventually, which was, her house was a couple of towns away. And we eventually spent a couple of nights in ditches, and we would go through people's yards and steal from their gardens and their trees, and that's how we would eat and keep the kids fed. And the younger twins were really little, so we would go into people's yards and take walnuts and chew them up and then feed our siblings that way. We would sleep in ditches. We were constantly wandering the streets trying to figure out how to get to my grandmother's house, and people eventually started asking questions of why we were on the streets and where our parents were, and we kept making up excuses because we didn't want to go back. They eventually got really concerned and called the police on us, and police officers came and took us and drove us to a hospital. And while we were at the hospital, we were asked a bunch of questions about why we were wandering the streets, and answered all the questions of why we weren't home, and told them all about the abuse that was going on there. And they admitted us into the hospital. We were there for a really long time. We were constantly given oatmeal to gain weight, and lots of bread, lots of carbs, and we were just scared out of our minds. And we didn't want to go back because we didn't know what to expect. They had an interview process for my parents apparently too, because they straightened up a lot and they stopped drinking, they were sober, they cleaned up their house. They essentially turned into the perfect parents, and the hospital released us back to them, and we went home with them. And we were really scared because we thought we're gonna get home and they're gonna beat the living daylights out of us, because we had just run away and we were put into a hospital, and they're not gonna like that very much. And we got there, and it was very surprising. Everything was clean, we had a warm meal. My parents were really kind to us, which was very difficult to comprehend for us, especially for me, because I started to like my own mom, and I just kind of started to see her as a person instead of just a person that just abused us. I actually started to develop emotional attachment to my own mother, and they fed us, they were being kind to us. And then A couple hours later, this lady comes to our house, and she comes in and she has this big black briefcase and just opens it and just puts papers all over the table and just starts asking us a lot of questions about our family, about our return, and how things are going. And we answered all of the questions, and hoping that we weren't going to upset my parents and then have them later get upset with us and then abuse us again. The lady just kind of asked, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Are your parents hitting you right now?" And we said no. And then she closed up her briefcase and then left. And that lifestyle lasted for about 2 weeks. We were in a good place. My parents were sober. They were making us meals and they were being kind to us. One day out of the blue, my biological dad started drinking again, and then my mom joined him, and the abuse started again. And when the abuse started, I just decided that I don't want to be in the situation again. So I took off again, and I just got out of the yard and started going down the street. And that same lady that was there when we first got home, she was driving up the road to come to our house for a surprise visit, just to see how things were going. And she saw me. She told me to come to her, and I did, and she was asking me why I was on the street, and I told her that I got abused again, and she put me in her car and we drove home. And when we got to the house, she got out of the car. She kind of had me next to her side. My biological parents, the second that they saw her and me together, they just started apologizing and telling me how much they love me and just really feeling sorry for what they had just done. And the lady went in and just took all of my other siblings and put us all in the car and went back into the house to talk to my biological parents about what was happening and what I had just told them. And my biological dad was very, very mad. He started throwing things, he was yelling. He was very physically abusive towards even this lady. He was throwing things at her, at walls, and just being crazy. And after she had that encounter with my biological parents, she got back to the car, handed us all each a pink pill, and gave us some water, and she just said, "Take this." And we all fell asleep, and when we woke up, we were at these huge gates, and that was our new home. We arrived at an orphanage, and that's how it happened.